Before we step into this forgotten world, I want to ask you something simple. If you believe history hides warnings meant for us, then stay with this story till the end. And if this journey opens your eyes even a little, remember to support this channel, because stories like these are not told anywhere else. Now, let us begin. What the three heavenly books say about this era. Before the ruins of Thamud were buried under sand, before arrogance turned into dust, the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran all echo the same warning. The Torah speaks again and again of nations destroyed not by lack of power, but by moral decay, idol worship, and rebellion against divine command. The Bible warns that when humanity replaces God with carved images and false gods, destruction follows silently, slowly, and then suddenly. The Quran names Thamud directly, describing a people gifted with strength, architecture, and security, yet destroyed because they chose arrogance over guidance. What happened after Thamud is rarely discussed. History goes quiet, scripture becomes brief, but the consequences spread across the entire world. This is not just the story of a destroyed nation. This is the story of how Shirk went global. After the silence of Thamud, when the final cry struck Thamud, the mountains they carved could not protect them. Their cities stood frozen, their homes became tombs, but humanity did not end. Survivors scattered, travelers passed the ruins, generations whispered about a cursed land where screams once split the earth. And yet, something dangerous survived. Not their buildings, not their tools, but their ideas. The belief that humans could control destiny without God. The belief that power itself deserved worship. The belief that intermediaries could replace direct obedience to the Creator. This was the seed. From one idol to many. After Thamud, idol worship did not disappear. It evolved. People no longer worshipped only statues. They worshipped forces. They worshipped ancestors. They worshipped stars, fire, kings, and eventually, themselves. Shirk became sophisticated. Some called idols symbols. Others called them representations. But the result was the same. God was pushed away, and creation took his place. This is where the real danger began. How Shirk crossed borders. Trade routes expanded. Caravans moved between Arabia, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and beyond. Along with spices and gold, beliefs traveled too. A merchant would say, "This God protected my city." A traveler would reply, "Then let us keep his image with us." And slowly, quietly, idols crossed deserts faster than armies ever could. No empire needed to conquer. No sword needed to rise. Shirk spread through stories. The birth of cultural religion. After Thamud, religion stopped being about obedience and started becoming about identity. People said, "This is the God of our fathers. This is the tradition of our people. This is who we are." And that is the most dangerous form of shirk. Because once belief becomes culture, questioning it feels like betrayal. The Quran later exposes this exact mindset when nations say, "We follow what we found our forefathers upon." The Bible echoes the same when prophets are rejected for challenging tradition. The Torah warns how quickly people turn golden calves into sacred objects once fear replaces faith. Different books, same disease. Why God kept sending warnings. Here is something most people miss. God did not destroy Thamud and then abandon humanity. He continued sending guidance. Prophets arose in different lands. Messengers warned new nations. Signs appeared again and again. But now, the world had learned how to ignore warnings politely. Instead of outright rebellion, people said, "Yes, We believe. But also. That, also, changed everything. Shirk becomes normal. After Thamud, Shirk stopped looking evil. It looked artistic. It looked spiritual. It looked wise. Temples became beautiful. Statues became masterpieces. Rituals became festivals. People felt closer to their gods than ever before. And yet, the distance from the Creator grew wider. This is why destruction no longer came instantly. It came gradually. A world that forgot fear. One of the greatest lessons from Thamud was supposed to be fear. Fear of accountability. Fear of arrogance. Fear of disobedience. But humanity replaced fear with confidence. We are advanced. We are enlightened. We understand the universe now. These words would echo again thousands of years later. In our own time. The pattern is set. After Thamud, a pattern was born. Prosperity, pride, shirk, moral decay, warning, rejection, collapse. Empires would rise and fall following this same script. Egypt, Babylon, Rome, different gods, same arrogance. The silent connection to our world. This episode is not about ancient ruins. It is about us. Because the world after Thamud looks disturbingly familiar. People still worship power. They still worship wealth. They still worship identity. Idols no longer need stone. They live in minds now. Pause and think. What if the destruction of Thamud was not the punishment, but the last clear warning? What if everything after that was humanity choosing its own path, knowingly? And what if we are living near the end of that path? If this story is making you uncomfortable, that means it is doing its job. Stay till the end of this series, because what comes next connects ancient destruction to modern collapse. After the destruction of Thamud, the world did not pause. It adapted. That is the most frightening thing about humanity. We adapt even to warnings. The ruins of Thamud became a landmark, but not a lesson. Travelers passed by them, some with fear, some with curiosity, and some with arrogance. And slowly, something changed. People stopped asking, why were they destroyed? They started asking, how powerful must they have been? This single shift in thinking changed the future of the world. From fear to fascination. At first, the story of Thamud was told as a warning. Parents frightened their children with it. Elders reminded tribes that arrogance invites ruin. But as generations passed, fear faded. What replaced it was admiration. These people carved mountains. These people controlled nature. These people challenged a prophet. Instead of learning humility, people learned ambition. And ambition, when disconnected from God, becomes rebellion. Shirk evolves into systems. After Thamud, shirk no longer stayed limited to personal worship. It became institutional. Kings began claiming divine favor. Priests became intermediaries who controlled forgiveness. Rulers declared themselves chosen, untouchable, semi-divine. This was no longer about statues alone. This was about authority. Giving God's absolute authority to humans is one of the most dangerous forms of shirk. And it spread fast. Why prophets faced more resistance? Before Thamud, people openly rejected prophets. After Thamud, people became smarter. They didn't say, we reject God. They said, we already believe. But belief had conditions now. God is supreme. But our traditions matter. God is creator. But our leaders decide. God is powerful. But our idols bring us closer. This kind of shirk is harder to expose. Because it hides behind faith-like language. The delay of punishment. One question always comes up. If God destroyed Thamud so clearly, why were later nations allowed to continue longer? The answer is terrifying. Because punishment shifted from instant destruction to gradual decay. Nations after Thamud were not wiped out in a moment. They rotted from within. Morality collapsed first. Families broke next. Justice disappeared slowly. Truth became negotiable. By the time collapse came, people didn't even recognize it as punishment. They called it politics. They called it economics. They called it fate. The global spread of Shirk. As civilizations expanded, Shirk diversified. In some lands, it took the form of sun worship. In others, ancestor worship. Elsewhere, nature, animals, stars, and kings. Different faces. Same core mistake. Giving divine significance to creation. The Torah warns of this when people turn symbols into gods. The Bible warns when images replace obedience. The Quran warns when partners are associated with Allah knowingly. The message was always the same. Humanity just kept changing the packaging. The psychological shift. Here is something rarely discussed. Shirk did not spread because people were ignorant. It spread because people wanted control. A distant, absolute God requires submission. But idols can be managed. You can bribe idols. You can redesign idols. You can claim idols support your desires. Shirk makes religion convenient, and convenience is addictive. When power became sacred, after Thamud, power itself became worship-worthy. Empires justified conquest by divine approval. Kings ruled without accountability. Violence was sanctified. Sound familiar? Whenever power becomes sacred, God becomes distant. This is why prophets were labeled troublemakers. They threatened not belief but control. Echoes in the modern world. You might think idols are gone. But ask yourself honestly. What do people obey without question today? What do they sacrifice morality for? What defines their identity more than truth? Money, nation, ideology, fame, self. These are modern idols. Different form, same shirk. The silent rejection of God. The world after Thamud learned a dangerous skill. Reject God without saying no. People kept religious language. They kept rituals. They kept symbols. But obedience disappeared. God was remembered but not followed. This is worse than open disbelief. Because it numbs the conscience. A world running on delay. Why hasn't the world collapsed yet? Because mercy still exists. Warnings still come. But every delay is not approval. Sometimes it is accumulation. Every injustice stored. Every lie recorded. Every arrogance noted. The Quran reminds that God does not seize immediately, but when he does, escape is impossible. The Bible echoes that judgment comes like a thief. The Torah warns that patience is not weakness. The pattern is clear. A question you cannot ignore. If Thamud fell at the peak of power, what makes us think we are immune? If they carved mountains and still fell, what will technology save us from? If Shirk destroyed them, why would a more polished version save us? If this story feels like it is describing the world you live in, you are not alone. Stay with this channel, because these stories are not entertainment, they are mirrors. The world after Thamud did not collapse overnight. That is the illusion humanity still believes. Collapse does not arrive with noise. It arrives with normalization. By the time people realize something is wrong, it already feels familiar. This is how Shirk completed its journey. When truth became uncomfortable, after Thamud, truth stopped being welcomed. Prophets did not disappear. Guidance did not end. Warnings did not stop. What changed was reception. People no longer said, "You are wrong." They said, "You are extreme." They didn't deny God. They redefined him. God became symbolic. Morality became flexible. Obedience became optional. And shirk reached its most dangerous form. The final shape of shirk. The final stage of shirk is not worshipping idols. It is worshipping the self. When humans decide what is right and wrong. When desire replaces revelation. When ego replaces accountability. This is the shirk that destroyed civilizations quietly. The Torah warns against hearts that harden even while mouths speak faith. The Bible warns of people who honor God with words but not with actions. The Quran warns of those who take their desires as gods. Different words, same warning. Why history keeps repeating? People often ask, why does God keep allowing the same mistakes? The answer is painful. Because humanity keeps choosing them. Thamud was not unique. They were early. What followed them was repetition on a larger scale. More knowledge, more power, more arrogance. Same ending. The illusion of permanence. Every civilization believed it would last. They believed their systems were too advanced. Their laws too refined. Their power too great. Thamud believed the mountains themselves guaranteed permanence. Modern humanity believes technology does. But permanence was never promised to arrogance. Only accountability was. The moment before collapse. Here is the most chilling part. Every destroyed nation reached a moment where warning became rare. Not because God stopped warning, but because people stopped listening. Truth tellers were mocked. Moral voices were silenced. Corruption became entertainment. At that point, collapse was no longer punishment. It was consequence. The world we live in now. Look around. Faith exists, but obedience is questioned. Morality exists, but truth is negotiable. God is mentioned, but rarely obeyed. Shirk has not vanished. It has matured. It no longer needs statues. It lives in priorities. A direct question to you. If Thamud were alive today, would they recognize our world as different? Or familiar? They worshipped strength. We worship success. They trusted structures. We trust systems. They ignored warnings. We scroll past them. Why this story matters. This episode was not about ancient ruins. It was about a path. A path humanity chose after Thamud. And that path has an end. The Quran reminds that God does not wrong people, people wrong themselves. The Bible reminds that a house built on sand cannot stand. The Torah reminds that blessings turn into tests. All three agree on one thing. No civilization escapes accountability. The final warning hidden in mercy. The most dangerous sign is not destruction. It is delay. Because delay makes people think they are safe. But Thamud was safe. Until they weren't. If this story made you pause, then it was meant for you. If it made you uncomfortable, then it touched truth. Support this channel, because stories like these are meant to wake us up, not entertain us. And stay with Son of Adam, because the next episodes will connect ancient warnings directly to the future we are walking toward. History does not repeat itself by accident. It repeats itself by choice. Closing reflection. The world after Thamud chose shirk. Not loudly, not immediately, but completely. The question is no longer what happened to them. The real question is, what are we choosing now?